Today, we're going to take a look at Matt Mask versus Brad Grundy at the East vs West Challenger Series. I thought this match was really interesting. It is a pretty classic low hand, longer arm top roller versus the slightly shorter posting style top roller, and I think it also demonstrated how much insane progress Brad has made over just a little bit of time. If you guys didn't remember, he ended up losing to Matt Mask left-handed arm wars not that long ago, and now on the right arm, he ended up defeating him pretty comfortably. So one of the first things I noticed in the setup was the distance that Brad was creating between the hands. Notice how Brad's thumb is way over here. It's extremely far away from Matt's thumb. Generally speaking, the person who is low hand top rolling is probably going to need a little bit less space between these two thumbs. The more space that there is, the more pressure Brad is going to be putting way out onto the fingertips of Matt, way closer to his index knuckle. And what that's going to mean is that Matt's connection to his elbow flexion, to his arm power, is not going to be that solid. It's going to feel really awkward, like he's having to put pressure through his index knuckle, even through a low hand top roll, instead of putting pressure more through his thumb in a low hand top roll, which is what he's going to want. But Brad, on the other hand, since he is establishing this high knuckle early, he is going to be the posting style top roller, and I think also his riser is just stronger than Matt's. He is okay with this amount of separation because as long as he has the high grounds, he probably doesn't really care where the hands end up. All that he's trying to do is win the battle of the post, win the battle of the high knuckle. And getting into the actual start of the match, we see this play out. We see that Brad's knuckle is significantly higher than Matt's, and pretty much what happens is Matt's back pressure, his elbow flexion stalls out. It maxes out. He's not quite cracking back Brad's wrist. It's on the verge, he's really close. But if Matt continues to move backward, he's just going to begin to open his own elbow flexor because he just doesn't quite have enough to crack that wrist. So Matt only has one other option now, and that is to begin driving sideways. The problem is he doesn't quite have enough height to do that yet. And we see that as soon as Matt drives sideways, he actually just cracks his own wrist back. Now he also does take Brad's wrist a little bit, but you can see that Brad maintains that high knuckle position, and as soon as Matt starts going sideways and down, now Brad is beginning to gain full access to his back pressure, and just moments after this, we see that he takes full control. Matt is still putting some pressure into Brad's fingertips, but now Brad is in a much better spot. Now after this, Matt ends up fouling, we get a restart, and he ends up just fouling out this round, so Brad takes this first round on fouls. But now we're going to restart in round 2. This time, Brad has a much better chance of doing well. The buckle is now on Matt's hands. Whether or not the buckle matters in general is a different story, but at least in terms of a low hand top roller versus a posting top roller, I've noticed the buckle seems to make an exceptionally big difference. Once again, we see that Brad is setting up with quite a bit of space in between the thumbs. He's doing this on purpose, and it's being very effective to limit Matt's up pressure, Matt's access to apply his pressure into Brad's hands. And upon the go of the match, once again, we can see Brad establishing this really high knuckle position, and Matt is going to be forced to hold on to a certain extent. This time, Brad does not have the buckle on his hand, and everything that he did in the previous round is just going to be even easier. Probably he got his webbing a little bit higher this time, and Matt's webbing was a little bit lower. He was kind of getting supinated and sucked underneath as they tightened that buckle. And upon the go, you can see that once again, Brad just takes full control. He maintains that high knuckle, he takes wrist control, he takes everything that he wants to, and he even still maintains pretty good shoulder commitments. Now after this, something happens that I'm not exactly sure what was going on, but I have a feeling that Brad was probably faking intensity here. We see that this round ends up taking maybe 20 or 30 seconds or something, and it looks like Brad is hitting and he's trying to pin Matt, but to be honest, I kind of think that Brad was just totally acting here, that he was faking it, and he was just trying to get Matt to gas himself out more and more so. There is a chance that Matt was still putting pressure through the thumb, and maybe Brad felt that his hand was about to go, but it probably looks to me like Brad was faking. We also saw that in their Arm Wars match left-handed, I remember that Brad, as soon as he got any kind of stop, he just flash pinned Matt, and afterward he said he should have tried to gas him out a little bit more, that was a mistake to just finish the match so early. And another reason I think that Brad might be acting here a little bit to try to get Matt to gas himself out is that as soon as Matt fully committed to the flop press, he eventually totally committed, he brought his shoulder right behind his arm. Then we see Brad just super gently, super slowly and easily just rock Matt right down to the pin pad. It looked like he wasn't even trying at all. So I'm guessing that Brad was faking here. He's trying to make Matt think that he's still in the match, when in reality he's just bleeding Matt out. He's doing all of this on purpose because of how easy he ended up pinning him at the ends. And in the third and final round, this time we see Matt trying to set up a little bit deeper, trying to push that lower part of his palm past. But once again, Brad just ends up taking full hand control. Now from here, we see Brad decide to intentionally hook Matt. He comes down and chops down onto Matt's arm, and I'm guessing that once again, he just did this to test this lane, maybe to try to make his victory a little bit bigger than it would have been, because I have a feeling he could have just pinned Matt from here in this outside lane if he wanted to, but he ends up coming forward, he ends up hooking Matt, and then we have a super long drawn out hook war that was really cool to see. Brad does end up eventually getting the pin. He kind of comes in and out of some shoulder commitment in this hook lane, but eventually he just goes for a more side pressure driven surge, not with as much shoulder commitment, and he is able to get the pin by doing that. So Brad ends up taking this match 3-0. There were moments where it did look very close. I think the very first round was very close, and potentially in the hook was a little bit closer, but in the second round where Brad did not have the buckle on his hand, that one seemed to be very dominant to me. Although it is possible that Brad was not faking it all. If that's the case, I'm not exactly sure why he pinned him so easily in the ends, but it could have been a lot closer than it appeared. But let me know what you guys thought about this match, because I was super impressed by Brad Grundy, and as a lot of you know by now, Brad has officially issued a challenge that he's going to put up $5,000 for anyone in North America who wants to pull him in that 105 to 110 weight class. He suggested people like Michael Todd, Devin Larratt, Todd Hutchings, and personally I would love to see Brad get a rematch against Todd Hutchings. They had a match a while back in which Todd was able to win, but at this point, I think that Brad might have some real deal chances of doing something to Todd Hutchings. So hopefully that match gets to happen pretty soon. And as for Matt Mask, a match that I would really like to see would be Matt Mask versus Lachlan. I think this could be a very interesting style match. Both of these guys are coming off of a loss, and I would be super interested to see what that would look like. But let me know who you guys would like to see Brad Grundy pull next, as well as who you'd like to see Matt Mask pull next. I think Matt hasn't been looking as great lately, but a lot of that is just because he's going up against killers. And as for Brad, I think he is already one of the top guys in North America in that 110 weight class, and he's only going to continue to get better.